Fatal blow within NATO. Donald Trump ordered the withdrawal of about 5,000 American soldiers from Germany, and this Saturday, May 2nd, 2026, opened the biggest recent military crisis between Washington and its European allies. The decision directly affects the heart of the United States' presence in Europe, because Germany hosts central bases for American logistics, including Ramstein, one of the main US military support hubs outside American territory itself. The measure was confirmed by the Pentagon and is expected to be carried out in the next 6 to 12 months. I'll tell you all about that in a moment, but right now you'll want to be subscribed to the channel to stay well informed with real-time information in the best journalistic quality you've ever seen, with the credibility standard of Milson Alves. In practice, it's not just a reduction in personnel, it's a warning. Trump is telling the Europeans that the United States no longer wants to support an alliance alone, which, according to him, demands a lot from Washington and delivers little when a crisis comes. The withdrawal represents about 14% of the 36,000 American troops stationed in Germany, a presence built since the end of World War II and used as a bridge for operations in Europe, the Middle East, and other regions. The shock comes after weeks of tension over the war against Iran. Trump has demanded support from NATO allies, especially during the Strait of Hormuz crisis, but he has faced resistance in European capitals. Italy denied authorization for American military aircraft to use the Sigonella base in Sicily in an operation linked to the Middle East. Spain was also mentioned among the nations that did not pave the way for Washington as Trump expected. For the White House, this sounded like a breach of trust at a time when the United States said it was facing a direct threat to its interests. And then the issue becomes bigger than just a simple troop exchange. Trump did not announce a formal withdrawal from NATO, but he began a real pullback within the military structure that supports the alliance. To officially leave NATO, the American government would have to face legal and political barriers in Washington. But on the ground, the message has already been sent. If Europe does not stand with the United States when the pressure is on, the United States can also reduce its protection in Europe. Germany was the main target because it is the largest hub of American military presence on the European continent. Ramstein functions as a command, transport, communication, and rapid response center. It is not only used to defend Germany. It serves to move troops, planes, equipment, and intelligence to various fronts. That's why withdrawing 5,000 soldiers from there is not a small gesture. It's a calculated cut in a mechanism that, for decades, has sustained American power outside its own territory. NATO's reaction was to try to control the damage. The alliance said it is working with Washington to understand the details of the withdrawal and reiterated that Europe needs to invest more in defense. This sentence is important because it confirms Trump's main point. European allies spent years promising to spend more, but Washington continued to shoulder the biggest share of the military burden. In 2025 at the Hague Summit, NATO members committed to reaching 5% of GDP on defense and security. The problem is that Trump doesn't want to wait until 2035, he wants an answer now. The war against Iran became the test that exposed the rift. When Washington needed bases, routes, political support, and naval presence, part of Europe hit the brakes. It was precisely at this point that Trump saw NATO as a convenient alliance for Europeans when they need protection, but slow and hesitant when the United States asks for something in return. The harshest words came after German Chancellor Friedrich Merz criticized the American handling of the crisis with Iran. According to international reports, Merz questioned Washington's strategy, and the White House reacted as if Germany were attacking the American effort itself. According to reports, the Pentagon then announced the withdrawal, saying the decision came after a review of the United States military posture in Europe. For Trump, the math is simple. The United States spends, protects, arms, transports, and takes on the main risk. When Ukraine needed it, Washington poured in weapons, money, and strategic support. When Europe asked for guarantees against Russia, American soldiers stayed on European soil. But when the United States came into direct conflict with Iran, important allies preferred to distance themselves, criticize, or limit the use of bases. This is the point that turned a diplomatic disagreement into a crisis of trust. NATO was founded in 1949 at the beginning of the Cold War, with 12 founding nations including the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Canada, and other European nations. Today, the alliance has 32 members. Its logic has always been clear. An attack against one member would be treated as an attack against all. But this mechanism, known as Article 5, has only been used once in history after the September 11, 2001 attacks against the United States. In other words, when NATO's highest clause was triggered, it was triggered in defense of the Americans. This detail carries weight in Trump's speech. Europe received protection in Congress, the military presence and American guarantee for decades. But when the White House demands total alignment, many European governments respond with caution, economic calculation, and fear of dragging their societies into an unpopular war. The result is an alliance that still exists on paper, but is starting to falter in practice. Germany tries to respond by saying that Europe needs to take more responsibility for its own defense. The German defense minister, Boris Pistorius, treated the withdrawal as something predictable and emphasized that Berlin wants to strengthen its armed forces. But the truth is that rebuilding military capability doesn't happen overnight. It's not enough to just announce spending. You need to have industry, ammunition, soldiers, command, transportation, and political will. And that last part is the hardest for a Europe used to operating under the American security umbrella. For Moscow, this news is strategic. Even without having to fire a shot at NATO, Russia sees its greatest military adversary entering into internal conflict. If the alliance loses unity, the pressure on the Ukrainian front also changes. The American withdrawal from Germany may not change the war immediately, but it changes the atmosphere. It shows that Washington's priority may shift from Europe to the Middle East, to the Indo-Pacific, or to the American hemisphere itself. For Beijing, the signal is also strong. China watches every rift between the United States and Europe because it knows that any potential crisis in Taiwan would depend on America's ability to quickly build coalitions. If Washington argues with NATO allies over bases, spending, and political support, Beijing understands that the American alliance system is under pressure. And when the alliance system weakens, strategic rivals gain room to test limits. The case is reminiscent of the Suez Crisis. 1956. That year, the United Kingdom, France, and Israel moved against Egypt after Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. The crisis exposed a deep division among Western allies because the United States did not support the British and French action as London and Paris had expected. NATO itself acknowledges in its history that Suez revealed a lack of political consultation and division among alliance members. The lesson is straightforward. When allies fail to coordinate strategy before a crisis, the alliance comes out weaker afterward. Recent examples in other nations show the same pattern. In Afghanistan, the American withdrawal forced allies to scramble for evacuations and exposed logistical dependence. In the war in Ukraine, Europe promised more autonomy, but continued to depend on weapons, intelligence, and leadership from the United States. Now, in the crisis with Iran, Italy, Spain, and Germany show that they are not always willing to follow Washington when the political and economic cost gets high. It is in this vacuum that Russia and China celebrate, because they know that American strength is not only in its planes and ships, but in its ability to bring allies to the same side. The withdrawal of the 5,000 soldiers from Germany, therefore, is not the official end of NATO, but it is a heavy blow to the political pact that supported the allies. NATO is using troops as leverage. He wants to force the Europeans to choose between spending more, supporting more, and aligning more closely, or losing part of the American protection. For Europe, the message is uncomfortable. For Russia and China, it's a rare opportunity. In the end, what happened was a change in attitude. The United States began to reduce its military presence in NATO's main European territory. The reason is Trump's frustration with allies who, according to Washington, ask for protection but hesitate when it's time to give support. And that's why this withdrawal carries more weight than its numbers. It turns a diplomatic crisis into a concrete sign of rupture. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Like this video, subscribe, and check the comments at the end to engage more with the Milson Alves community.